and every woman in this land. Stay strong, keep your faith alive. Whatever comes to meet us, know the darkness won't defeat us. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Some say the end is coming, to set our souls running, but I say, stay strong and keep your faith alive. Let's all come together, take care of each other. Stay strong and keep your faith alive.
Let's take a deep breath and turn within. And we are fortunate to comprehend the profundity of the mystical syllable Om, and blessed to be in a state of consciousness where we're able to chant this mystical syllable that some believe is the holy word, the very seed of all manifestation, and the very seed that sustains all creation. So let's take a moment with great humility and gratitude to focus on our body as this celestial temple, this cosmic temple, and our hearts as the sanctum sanctorum of this temple. And let's take a deep breath, straighten our spines, and chant the mystical syllable Om 3 times. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We dedicate our efforts to a vision of a springtime of humanity where all humanity makes a leap in consciousness and realizes the unity and divinity of all life, where we cherish our Mother Earth as our own dear mother and share with each other as brothers and sisters for all our relations, and so it is. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. And the purpose of the invocation is to elevate our consciousness, to elevate my consciousness. The Guru is the dispeller of darkness. And here we say the Guru is this Brahma, the breath of life. The Guru is Vishnu, that which pervades everything, that mysterious force which pervades everything. The Guru is Maheshwara, Lord Shiva. Shiva rules Tamas Guna and the possibility of embodiment here on earth, the auspiciousness, the scintillating experience of being in a body and the spiritual progress that we could make in this body. And then we say the Guru is that which transcends anything that we can comprehend. Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, beyond, beyond, beyond. And to that supreme beyond the beyond, I bow. So we invoke I feel humbled to have taken on the challenge of contemplating the ineffable with you. The ineffable is by definition beyond description. Indeed, the sage say that once you speak of something, it's corrupted by the word. It becomes impure simply by putting words around it. That what we're seeking is like water, and our words or concepts are like a fishnet, and the water just goes right through this fishnet. That we're trying to grasp this water of the ineffable, and the harder you try to grasp it, the more it just is released from your hands, released from your grasp. But in any case, I want to make two disclaimers. One, it is a great and wonderful mystery that anything is or that we are. Neither scientists nor sages know what anything is, where we've come from, what we're doing here ultimately, where we're going. Again, it's a great and wondrous mystery. So what we have to say here is offered in a humble way as the fruit of my contemplation, nothing more, nothing less. I stand on the shoulder of giants who for thousands of years, perhaps through many creations, have asked these same questions. And if I'm here, it may be again through good karma, through many lifetimes on my part, and the good karma of humanity through many creations. So we stand on the shoulders of the eternal. We stand on the shoulder of these immortals, let us say. Secondly, the work that I do draws largely from the Sanatana Dharma. The Sanatana Dharma is the name that people in India give to their traditional culture. Sanatana means older than time, prior to time, eternal. Prior to this creation, prior to time, space, causality, which underlie this creation. And Dharma points to an experience of the sacred, that life is the product of ultimate intelligence, and we can know experientially when we are in communion with that intelligence, because we experience the sacredness, the ecstasy, the bliss, the gift of that communion. So that when we're in service, feeding people, nourishing people, caring for people, there's a joy and a bliss inherent in that experience. When we're loving our dog, when we're in the garden, there's an ecstasy, a peace, a clarity in the bliss of that activity. When we're living life to the fullest, we're dancing with life flowing through us in some way or another. When we're creating, when we're unfolding our gifts, there's a bliss and a joy inherent in that. So that one can experience in your every action, when you're in communion with the mystery, when you are part of the gift, when the gift is flowing through you, when life is unfolding through you, and one can feel, and we call that experience Dharma. So the Sanatana Dharma claims it is not a philosophy. The Sanatana Dharma argues that it is not a philosophy, but is a way of life. That truth can only be lived, truth can only be practiced, truth can only be aspired to in our life rather than a philosophical concept. So I offer you the fruit of my contemplation and the blessings of those wonderful sages who I've been involved with over the years, as simply that. And I would warn you that I did not grow up in the culture, and I don't speak any of the languages, so anything I have to say takes place against a horizon of tremendous ignorance. So it's a very rich culture, and it's a culture in which any one point of view is contrasted with other points of view. So it's not like there's right and wrong. It's a culture that understands that each way of seeing is a way of not seeing, that each point of view tells part of the story. So understand anything I'm saying is part of the story. There are many, many other points of view, many, many other darshans which will illuminate different aspects. And anything I'm saying is limited by my perspective, my experience, and my ignorance. So with those disclaimers under my belt, we can go on. We begin by elevating our consciousness with an invocation to the goddess Saraswati. So one of the things that we love to point out is that this iconography from India has a profound symbolism. So here the goddess Saraswati means essence of self. And her vehicle, so the vehicle of the essence of self is the Hansa, and which means the swan, and it's a play on words meaning the breath. And the swan, and particularly the geese that fly over India, these tundra swans, are some of the highest flying creatures in creation, highest flying birds in creation, that they fly on the level of a jumbo jet in the 30,000 feet and more. And as the highest flying birds, they represent the supreme principle. So we use the Paramahansa to point to the supreme principle, and indeed, the swan symbolizes the breath as the supreme principle, the fundamental principle that underlies everything we have to say. Indeed, the name for the creator is Brahma, which means an ever-expanding breath. So this breath is the fundamental assumption, the fundamental principle that underlies all our understanding, and the idea that the breath is fundamental. Certainly, breath and life are inseparably bound. You stop breathing, and this body begins to deteriorate almost immediately. That it's only this inspiration, the spiraling of the resonance of the life force that entrains the fields of the atoms, molecules, and cells into attunement with the mysteries of life and consciousness.
सरस्वती देव्यै नमः। ॐ ऐं श्रीं ह्रीं सरस्वती देव्यै नमः। सरस्वती देव्यै नमः। ॐ ऐं श्रीं ह्रीं 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 सरस्वती
was reading Swami Prabhavananda this week, a sage I have a great deal of respect for. Swami Prabhavananda was the missionary from the Vedanta Society to their Los Angeles mission. But in any case, he points out what a miracle it is that we have access to this knowledge, that we have access to this wisdom. You know, I think of us in the West, and archaeology, you know, tells us we came from apes. We lived in caves with bones for tools, bones and rocks for tools for an untold length of time. And in that time, we have just never come across anything like the wisdom that we find in the Sanatana Dharma. Or if we have, it's been largely lost. Now, in the Sanatana Dharma, the wisdom that they have is not from books, it's not from thought, not from the linear mind, not from the rational mind, not from the great intellects. The wisdom that they call the Sanatana Dharma was heard from a higher dimension as a fruit of pure living and contemplation. That the cosmology that we're going to be exploring is not a product of this mind, as profound as it is for us when we when we contemplate its light, but was heard by these sages from a higher dimension, and has been honored so profoundly and cherished so profoundly. It's carried in a language, a Sanskrit, which is called the language of the gods, or the perfected language. It's totally unambiguous. When you go to learn it, you spend your first 7 years simply learning how to carry on the tradition with purity, and you don't even you don't learn the meanings of what you're reading and what you're studying. You just learn how to carry this on, which is this knowledge which has been carried on for thousands and thousands of years. So it's miraculous that we have it available to us. It's a gift from a higher dimension. And then secondly, it's miraculous that the fact that we are is a miracle, but the fact that we're called to this Dharma is miraculous, that we're healthy, that we have the time and space, and that we have the inclination is a miraculous blessing in our lives. So what is the essence of this Dharma? What is the essence of the Sanatana Dharma? And we're told the essence of the Sanatana Dharma is in the word darshan. Like in India, there are 6 major orthodox philosophies, and they're called 6 darshans. And darshan means to see. Like when you have the darshan of a saint, you see the saint and the saint sees you. But to see also has a meaning, which is to realize, to see, to get. And for my nickel, this philosophy is a body of seeing, a body of realization. Again, this body of knowledge is called the Vedas. And the word Veda, which is usually translated as knowledge, comes from the same roots as video, vision. And again, it's to see, to realize that the Vedas are a body of deep personal realization. So it's really important to understand that the power of what we contemplate is in your seeing, in your getting, in your own journey of realization that you have the power, and you are the key to this power. Now at this point, we usually focus on the Asatoma prayer. In the Sanatana Dharma, the wisdom of India, the purpose of the wisdom is not to get a better job like today we go to college to get a job to survive, or not even like traditionally knowledge was philosophy, the love of learning. But the purpose of this knowledge and the promise of this knowledge is the total, the final, the complete. Just a second. The purpose of this knowledge is to address a fundamental ignorance that is at the root of our suffering. That these sages have held this knowledge so precious, and one of the reasons they've held this knowledge so precious is because in this human condition, when you are, for many of us, when we're out of touch with this knowledge, we're in tremendous, tremendous pain. And the condition of alienation, all the lost souls, the conditions of disenchantment, all of the pain and malaise caused by looking everywhere in the world for something that can only be found in another dimension, we call suffering. They all create a horrendous, a bad state of mind. I call this, okay. So the sages promise that the purpose of this knowledge is the total, the final, the complete, the permanent annihilation of this affliction, of this suffering, of this dukkha. This condition of ignorance, and the ignorance of our own inherent divinity. And again, it's a truth can only be lived. So we're not merely talking about an intellectual realization. We're talking about a cellular transformation, a transformation, the way you vibrate and what you're tuned into in this cosmos, to move from external communion into an internal communion with a higher dimension of your own inherent divinity. So what this way of life of the Sanatana Dharma promises is a life of constant communion with your inherent divinity that can deliver you from the ignorance, suffering, from what I call ontological terror. An identification with your mind, a total identification with your mind, a total identification with your emotions, a total identification with outside circumstances, and a falling out of communion with life, a falling out of communion with nature, a falling out of communion with the cosmos, which leads us to experience a terror as we're separated from being. So the promise of this way of life is liberation from, in the ultimate sense of the word, but more important, a liberation from the hell realm that our own mind can be, the hell realm of the affliction, of the alienation, and that we live with every day. So a basic premise is that it's incredibly painful to go through life clueless of yourself. So you want to understand what your self is, because each of us is deeply, deeply identified with our mind, with our body, with our emotions, with our intellect, and ignorant of ourself. So for the sages, the self is something that is unchanging and not caused by anything else. So unchanging means it's permanent. So if you say, I am this body is myself, no, the body's always changing. And you will be the same you if you become a paraplegic, the same consciousness will be here. If you lose half your body, is same consciousness. The same consciousness was here when you're an infant, the same consciousness is here when you're an old man. So your body's incessantly changing. So there's a sense in which your body is not the reality we're seeking. And yet we're identified with our body and live in terror of cancer, COVID, disease, dementia. We live in terror of the body's deterioration and death. So the sages say you are not your body, you have a body, and our identification with it can be a source of tremendous suffering, but this suffering is rooted in ignorance. Well, if I'm not my body, I'm my mind. And again, your mind is just unchanging, unceasing, a kaleidoscope of change. There's just nothing that we can say is permanent. It's all so transient. So the sages don't dignify the mind as deeply as we're identified with the contents of the mind, as deeply as we suffer because we believe we are the thoughts and stories that we tell ourselves in our mind. But the sages say you're not your mind either. It's always changing. What's real about something that's so impermanent? And then you ask, well, maybe I'm my emotions. And again, you're totally identified with your emotions, and a slave to your emotions. And the sages say there's nothing real about your emotions. They're impermanent. They're transitory. And of course, your identification causes tremendous suffering, but we're looking for something that is real. Well, maybe I'm my intellect, the ideals, the ideas that I would live or die for, motherhood and the flag. And yet you find your ideals changing as you mature, so that the God and country that you once thought you would fight for, you now find that you're disillusioned. You find that country lies to you and manipulates you, and you're much more cynical than the young fellow who enlisted in the Marines. So if you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not your emotions, you're not your intellect, well, what is it about you that's real? Is there anything here that's real? And the sages point out there's only one thing about you that's real. And that they call the self. And the self is what's actually present in your experience. You only hear because you're present in that experience. You only see because you're present in that experience. There's a whole fabric of psychophysics that's between the world and your cognizance of that seeing, a whole fabric of dynamic of psychophysics between your ears and your nervous system and your mind, and you're registering that sound. Certainly a hummingbird hears different things, a bee sees differently as they're tuned into a different part of the ultrasonic spectrum. But what is actually cognizant, what is actually present in that touch, in that taste, is what we call the self, this cognizance, this presence, this awareness, this intelligence. And while everything around you and within you is changing, there's only one thing that doesn't change, And this is your consciousness, your presence, that from your first breath to your last breath, you've always been present in every moment of your experience. So we call this presence, we call this the self. So in our next prayer, we ask to go, and in Indian philosophy, only the self is real, because everything else changes. And the next thing that's really interesting about the self, it is the same presence, the same life, the same consciousness in all of us, the same breath carrying Saraswati, essence of self, into everyone. And this is not just everyone today, but it's everyone who ever was, is, or will be. That we arise out of an eternal, 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 eternal presence. So the self is unborn, undying, everywhere, always, eternal forever and ever and ever. That the mystery in you is unborn, undying, everywhere, always, eternal, forever and ever, that you are a vehicle and an expression of this great and wondrous and divine eternal life. That if anything is sacred, everything is sacred. Your life is sacred. So we ask in this next prayer to be cognizant of this reality. We ask to move in the prayer, lead us from the unreal to the real. And A means not, like asymptomatic. So asatoma means sat is being, from non-being. Lead us to being. Being is the only reality. And again, to be means to be conscious. To be conscious means to be. And in every moment, you are conscious and you are being. So lead us from non-being to being, from the unreal to the real. Tamasoma, from that which perishes into the self-effulgence. And again, Jyotir means the self-effulgent, the light of consciousness. Again, we've talked about this philosophy being a light of a consciousness of darshan, of seeing, of realization. Lead me from the unreal into the Jyotir, the light of realization. This cognizance in you that in every breath allows you to see the world, to realize the world, to see its beauty and majesty and splendor, that this realization is the essence of consciousness, that in every moment we're realizing. Again, think of this word, realizing, making real. We are making real. Even quantum physics tells us that the focal point of our consciousness is what makes real infinite possibility in this moment. So from the shadows to the light, from tamas, that which perishes, into the eternal light, from mrityurma, from death, mrityur means death, into amrit, the nectar of immortality. And where is this nectar of immortality? It is right here in the present. So as it says in that great treasure of wisdom by Baba Ramdas, be here now. That liberation is right in this moment. That as we are in this present, not in our mind, not in the past, not in the future, we are in a state of super consciousness. So let us chant the Asatoma.
Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya. 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 Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya.
Indian philosophy, the Sanatana Dharma, the root concepts, we've already introduced the concept of Brahma, B-R-A-H-M-A-H, Brahma. And Brahma means that which fills everything. And Brahma is often translated as an ever evolving, as a spring of life, an ever evolving life. And we understand Brahma as this breath of life, this all-pervasive breath of life, that without breath there'd be no life. And in every moment, here's this ocean of life that surrounds us. And every moment we breathe in this breath of life. And it's only this breath of life that sustains our experience, our life, our experience of life and consciousness. And what's profound about that is you think you're breathing, but life is really breathing you. That in every moment, the universe is a living, breathing being, and you are a cell in the body of that universe. And in exactly the same way that you breathe life into this body to vitiate every cell, life is breathing life into you. The life of the earth is breathing life into you to vitiate this cell in the body of the earth. And there's all in this understanding, there's only one life. And the nature of Brahma, and we'll go into this more deeply, is creative intelligence. That the nature of this breath of life, the essence of the breath of life, and it's dynamic, and every aspect and every vector and every possibility, every quality of this breath of life is creativity, is creative intelligence. And in this understanding, where life is ever growing, ever evolving, that in every moment in time and space, life is ever expanding, ever evolving, ever growing. Life is evolving, life is growing through you and me and everyone and everything. And we represent the cutting edge of the unfolding of the creative potency of the cosmos. And each of us is a spark of this light, of this flame. And that each of us has a spectrum of gifts as we personify this instant of the cosmos. And we personify a unique spectrum of qualities which embody this aspect of the cosmos so that it can be experienced. And somehow this experience contributes to the omniscience of the universe. So the omnipresence is witnessing your unique manifestation, that you personify an instant of the cosmos. If in the moment that you're born, you are the signature of that moment, and your life is the unfolding of that signature, the writing of that destiny. So that if you're born and the sun is rising in the constellation of Taurus, on the day you're born, you have a Taurus rising, and you're the Toyota of humanity. You're practical, you never break down, you're hardworking, you're a bull plodding along in life. You can do anything, you're a master of the physical plane. You appreciate value, you're a banker, art collector. You're stable. On the other hand, if you're born 4 hours, if you're born 2 months later, if you're born 4 hours later, when the earth is, rising sign is what sign was on the horizon when you were born. So if you're born 4 hours later, then Cancer's on the horizon when you're born. And you have a Cancer rising, and you're very sensitive, and you're all about emotion, and you're very high maintenance, and you're very watery and whiny, and you're a homebody, and your skills have to do with nurturing and loving and caring. And it's not just Taurus, but every light in the cosmos, every planet, every star is part of the unique vibration, the unique symphony, the unique music that you personify, and the unique music that you entrain within the larger vibrational field of the cosmos and the dynamics of the unfolding of that vibrational field. So your life is fundamentally significant, fundamentally divine. So in the Sanatana Dharma, we're saying Brahman is this ever expanding breath of life. And that all life is part of a unity, all life is sacred, all life is divine. And that your life is very significant in that you've been given these gifts to actualize as your personification of the illimitable creative intelligence of the cosmos. Thoughts or questions? So let's chant the chant, which is in a sense an honoring of this, of Gayatri, which means song, which we can interpret as meaning a vibration, this incredible mystery that's carried on the song of the celestial song, the music, music of the spheres that you personify, that you embody, the incredible vibrational matrix that's carried on your breath, the meters. So the word Gayatri means music, meter, and our fundamental nature as a vibration, and vibration as a key to the differentiation and the spectrum of consciousness that's embodied in all these mysteries that surround life and consciousness. So we're going to be doing the Gayatri Pranayam. And this life breath is often referred to as prana. Pra means to go forth. It's the positive, the outgoing breath of the mystery, the expansive, the yang, the fiery breath of the mystery. Na is from a root meaning breath. Prana is the breath of life, of a living universe. And Om is the sound of that prana, that is the vibrational carrier of that prana, is that prana, Om is the prana is Om. And so in this chant we're saying Om is the earth as we focus our consciousness on a root chakra. Om Bhuvaha, Om is the astral, the starry realm, the infinity of stars and galaxies that surround us. All of this is also Om. Om is Swar, the heaven realms beyond any comprehension that we can have. Om is Maha, this amazing, 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 amazing intelligence that underlies this gift of life. Om Jnana, that Om is the knowledge that enables us to somehow begin to contemplate this mystery. Om is Tapa, the level of passion that it takes to break through into Om is Satyam, being. Om, that which is worthy of worship. May we commune with that which is worthy of worship. May we commune with that light of consciousness that sustains all the worlds, that it may inspire our liberation. Om Apo Jyotir, everything. The light of the soul, the nectar of immortality, God, earth, beyond, heaven, it is all Om. So let us chant this chant now.
Om Bhuva Om Swaha Om Maha Om Jana Om Tapa Om Satyam Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Apo Jyoti Rasomritam Brahma Bhurbhuva Swaro. Om ॐ भुवः ॐ स्वः ॐ महः ॐ जनः ॐ तपः ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ तपः ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ भुवः ॐ स्वः ॐ महः ॐ जनः ॐ तपः ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ भुवः ॐ स्वः ॐ महः ॐ जनः ॐ तपः ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ भुवः ॐ स्वः ॐ महः ॐ जनः ॐ तपः ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ भुवः ॐ स्वः ॐ ॐ महा ॐ जन ॐ तप ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ जन ॐ तप ॐ सत्यम् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ आपो ज्योतिरसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We dedicate our efforts to a vision of a springtime of humanity, where all humanity makes a leap in consciousness and realizes the unity and divinity of all life, where we cherish our beloved Mother Earth as our own dear mother, where we share with each other as brothers and sisters for all our relations. And so it is. Do you have any questions about my rave this morning? Where I'm only talking about one thing, the unity and divinity of all life, the omnipresence of this creative intelligence. So I wish you the very, very best. Goddess bless you. Stay safe. Stay healthy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be happy. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings on all the planes be liberated. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Raise your hands in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Take a stand.
Say a prayer.
Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Hand in hand, side by side,
with
hearts open wide. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Help others find their way. Create heaven here today. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Raise your hands in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Take a stand.
Sing a prayer.
Stay strong and keep your faith alive. In times like these we need to remember what is real. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. United in our quest to spread love and happiness. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Hey Rama Rama Bolo, Jai Rama Rama Bolo. Hey Rama Rama Bolo, your faith alive. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Stay strong and keep your faith alive.